still have people where do it for years and still not achieve out of the 10 million of them put out, it not make one cheerleader. Being off the major label, like there's a lot more creative control.
OMI, he's a one-hit wonder.
This is my view on the business, right? At the police academy, there are certain things that you learn. Vibes Cartel doing his thing, Bounty Killer actually sent me big ups. 100% of nothing is nothing. I've been advised not to speak on it.
From Clarendon to the charts, OMI is an international pop sensation, best known for his global smash hit, Cheerleader. Featured everywhere from Rolling Stone to Billboard, he has captured the world's attention and carved out his place on the global stage. A proud member of Spotify's Billions Club, OMI has shared stages with Taylor Swift and collaborated with stars like Shaggy and the Vamps, to name a few. And today we're absolutely grateful that he could take time out of his schedule to take us on his journey. Hi, OMI. Good afternoon and welcome.
But it look like you're down to no good. Kshema.
Hey.
What's up?
Look here, absolutely amazing. You know, today, like leading up to the interview, I was saying to people that OMI was our music artist on the E-Buzz. And, you know, that was like one of your first interviews early in the day, you know, like back in the day and saying.
Yep. What's up? How you been?
Look, I am good. We just been getting to it. I want to kick off with your foundation, though. You know, how would you describe your upbringing in Maypen, Clarendon?
All right, so let us start there. Maypen was just one of the few places that I grew up. You know, very humble beginning. You know, parents. I had both parents in my life at the time. My father was also a very influential figure in my life. Musically, because he was also an artist. So even doing this now, it feels like I'm completing a process, like I'm fulfilling, you know, his dream. He's not with us anymore, you know, but, you know, I feel like I'm, in a sense, fulfilling his dream. You know, migrated, lived in Grand Cayman at some point. As I said before, I grew up in enough place. So the culture is kind of, you know, a whole heap of mix-up exposure.
Intertwined.
You know, intertwined. And I think it worked out in my benefit in the long run. Because now, you know, being an artist, you kind of have to have that, you know, open-mindedness and just, you know, being able to connect with a wide range of different, you know, people and culture and so forth.
Awesome. Now, can you share with us like any values that your parents instilled in you, both your mom and dad from early, that still resonates with OMI the man today?
Well, number one, hard work and dedication. I feel like if I'm not able to give it my 100%, I don't bother with it any at all. You know, it's just stick-to-itiveness and just being persistent in whatever you do. Also family. I really value family. I really value, you know, I'm an introvert, so my circle very, very small. And yeah, and I like it that way.
Now, was there like a specific experience? I know you said that, you know, your dad did music, but for you personally, did you have a specific experience where the realization hit that music is exactly what you want to do?
Yeah, from in high school, we would have, you know, seen that coming. In my high school years, I usually write a lot. I usually sing a lot. Back in them time, it was like hip hop. We were mostly into, you know, the Tupac and Biggie and, you know, the Jay-Z and the Slim Shady back then. And it was kind of that genre that we stuck to. But, you know, I started having a wider appreciation for music as I hit my late teens going into my 20s, where I actually started recording with, you know, underground studios and trying to discover my sound and, you know, widening my writing, you know, range and ability. So yeah, that's just.
Now, you briefly mentioned high school. Give us an idea. What was Omar like in the classroom? I know you say you're also introverted, but give us a little bit of that.
All right. So I was an art student, first and foremost. Big up Mr. Atkinson, my art teacher. I was an art student. Love the arts. You know, so I'm actually able to draw and paint very well. And Yeah, and I had my friends. We were all music lovers. I remember just drumming on the desk, and I would actually be spitting bars. You know what I mean?
Hey.
And yeah. So that's where the first compliments started coming in, like from my immediate circle. Letting me know that yo, you have a talent in you. And I want bigger people like Dave and Maurice and Mardus and all. Just my immediate circle. These were my guys. So the compliments started coming in from back them time, and I started believing it actually.
Mm-hmm.
Also my big brother, Ricardo, he would oftentimes tell me, youth, you're born for greatness though. Like he might tell me, say, youth, say I go reach one day. You have to reach, 'cause
Yeah.
yeah, cause you can't do too much something. You have to reach, man. So big ups to my big brother for that first inspiration.
Mm-hmm. When is the last time you actually painted anything?
I think the last time I picked up a pencil was, I think I posted it on my social media. I actually did a drawing of, what's his name, the marketer church, Peter. Yeah, when he had just passed, I did a drawing of him, and I actually posted the process, the beginning of the process on my IG page. That's when I think a lot of people kind of discovered that about me, that side about me.
Well, one thing for sure, what we're getting is that you are a lover of the arts in general. You mentioned your sound and doing underground recordings, in a bid to trying to find your sound. But did
Mhm.
your father's influence, actually help you to hone your skills and ultimately find your creative sound and process?
Of course, most definitely, because as I said before, I didn't start out. I never started out singing. I started out rapping, and it was like the hip hop genre. But I started to discover more melodic control and you know a tone. Like I had a sound, and I think this is what a lot of artists struggle to find, because yeah, you can sing, but you want to be identifiable. Some of the greatest artists that to ever walk this earth, they have a particular sound where it doesn't matter what genre they're doing. Once they come on that record, it's them. And I think this is what a lot of artists struggle with. So it's just a process, though.
But even though you had your big brother, you had your dad, and you had people in your life telling you that you're destined for greatness, and you yourself have this love for music, you ultimately went to the police force. Now, how did that
Yes.
happen? How that happen? How you
Yeah.
reach this? Sir?
I also wanted to serve my country. So it didn't matter what career path I had chosen. I always had that sense of duty and always wanted to serve my country this way. I tried out for the army, I tried out for the JCF, and one came through before the other. And I'm glad I served, and I think it has molded me into the person that I am today. It has helped to shape and mold me into the person I am today. It's not a journey I would trade, because there's a lot of principles that I would have, gathered from the force, being in the force, that I've applied to my now career in terms of the discipline. Like, for example, today for the interview, me left front and center and ready for my interview. You know what I mean?
And
And I
on
think that is one
time,
of the
yeah.
principles as an artist that, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So that is just to name a few characteristics that I'm happy that it instilled in me, as an artist.
I was reading an article, and you were quoted as saying that you served for 3 years, 10 months, and 13 days. Down to the T, down to the
Yeah,
T.
man.
How you kind of gave us like a brief synopsis in terms of how the experiences you learned there, how you applied it to music. You also said that you wanted to serve. How did you end up leaving the force? Was it a musical calling why you made that decision, and was it a difficult decision to walk away at that stage?
It 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 was it was a difficult this decision, because you would have built relationships, and I would have you know garnered a love for the JCF. I still do. That's my family still. But I was always going to the studio. I was always pursuing music because I met Clifton Specialist Dylan, who is still my manager to this day. And for a lot of people who don't know Clifton Specialist Dylan, he managed the likes of Shabba Patra, Kimani Mali has done so many big collaborations and big projects. He's a giant in the music industry. And I think we met while I was in training. Yeah, we met while I was in training, and he insisted that I finished training because he could have pulled me out from that early stage, and we started doing the thing. But he insisted upon me finishing training and just getting that discipline. And I was still going to the studio while I was, actively serving. I was still doing my recordings, and we were still putting out music and all this. So it became difficult to manage the two because both of these things are full-time careers.
I
So
can imagine.
it became really, yeah, it became really tedious having to work the graveyard shift and then go studio in the day. And then we have promo and we have video shoots and we have all these things going on. So it could not coexist if we were gonna do it at the level that we're doing it right now.
Because I remember too, when you came to the entertainment boys at the time, you were still a part of the police force, but nonetheless, you had your sound. You were also building an image
Yeah.
that we could see at that point. How did those early experiences and media exposure actually helped you ultimately on the journey?
Well, listen, I want to also add this. Now that you've asked me that question, a lot of people don't know that the curriculum, being in at the police academy, there are certain things that you learn, even table manners. You get me? So you public speaking is one of those things that is a part of the syllabus while you're there, public speaking. And I think that has also helped me because I'm a very reserved person, as I mentioned before. Being an introvert, it comes around full circle. I really don't like a crowded space or like having to really interact with people like that, especially people who I don't know. And I think the JCF now came in and kind of changed some of that, or I was able to better adapt to, the situation. And it is something that I've also applied in my music, like being on a stage, performing in front of a huge body of people and just coming out of my shell as Omar and being Omi,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it. And as you even mentioned, Clifton Specialist Dylan, you mentioned briefly that he has worked with icons like Shabba Ranks and even Patra. But what was that like for you, though, Omi, working with someone with that kind of legacy?
There was a very high sense of security first and foremost, because I felt like this guy knows what he's doing. And he has also demonstrated that during the years of working with him, so it's not just a name. He actually lives up to it. I have seen what he has done in terms of having an ear for the music, in terms of artist development and overall artist management. And I'm telling you, he is a wonderful manager, which is why we still have a relationship to this day. His thought process and his strategies I really admire.
No, Cheerleader became a global anthem. What do you remember most about the moment it blew up internationally?
All right, so Cheerleader first blew up in Hawaii, and a lot of people, that's before everything became so social media based, and you had people in Hawaii doing like cover versions of the song, which is why a part of the reason I think the major label actually became interested and wanted to be a part of that journey. And I remember when we first got signed with Ultra, and I started hearing all the plans, how we were going to proceed, how we were going to approach this, and I got excited from then. Then we did the remixed version, after I signed with Ultra, we did the remix, and that went out in Sweden. It took off in Sweden first, and that's when we started. That's my first platinum. That's the first region that I received a platinum record. And I'm telling you, the feeling I got was, yo, this is surreal. Because remember, I'm a little country boy from Maypen, Clarendon,
Maypen.
You know what I mean? So, like, me only see them thing up on TV and in movies, you know? So, yeah. So for me, that was how I felt in that moment. It felt surreal.
And I know you said even though the police academy would have, kind of tap into you being an introvert and, kind of showing you how to deal with people. But here it is now, everything is happening on steroids almost, because was that in itself a challenge for you, knowing that naturally you are an introverted person, but with the accomplishments and how everything was moving so rapidly, did you at any point felt overwhelmed?
Yes, it's an overwhelming feeling, but a part of the training that I received is being able to manage that emotion, that particular emotion of being overwhelmed. Just gather your composure and that sense of beauty, because I have people relying on me. You get me? And it's no bigger than myself. And I think that is, added incentive to why I do what I do.
And this one song has created wonders for you. It has changed your life completely, from Clarendon, Jamaica to Billboard charts. What has the journey taught you about perseverance and timing per se?
Patience is a virtue. And, once you believe, because you have to believe it first, you have to believe it first. Also, it has taught me humility, which is quite ironic because, getting put on as how we would term it on such a huge stage with such a huge exposure with, all these resources, open to you. You can now be in the rooms, be a part of the conversations. It is quite humbling, It is quite humbling. That is in my experience. It is quite humbling for me. Maybe, a lot of people it would get to their heads or whatever, but I've chosen to remain this way because it brings clarity, because there's always another level to go.
Is there somebody on your team or in your corner who, specifically keeps you, humble and
Specialist.
I can imagine. Oh my God.
Yeah, man, him humble you real quick. Well, no, it's my kids. My kids will humble me real quick. In a 1 second, them humble me. Yeah, daddy, come on, but that's something there.
Oh wow.
Daddy right now. The other day, I'm going to share something with you. The other day, I was in the car. I was taking my son to school, and man, a 3 years old. I'm gonna start singing and think me I impressed the man. The man was like, "Daddy," I said, "Yes, sir. Stop it nice." And him not even look for me while him say it, and him look out the window like,
oh wow. That's just something else. But what advice would you give though to your fellow entertainers, especially Jamaican entertainers? Because there is this notion about, rapid releases and not really giving their song an opportunity to soak and, as they would have said, catching at the hearts and minds of the people.
Yeah.
Like you did Cheerleader.
It is, I had an opinion of that. But then I think over time, I'm slightly beginning to change that opinion, because I know that times are changing, and that's the thing. The business change ever so often, and even more rapidly nowadays, because everything is so fast paced. You understand? I think what happened is you just have to find that chink in the armor, that little crack, where that little breakthrough, where you find that song that connects with people, and then no, you take it and run with it. But for an artist who is dedicated to their career and want to, put out music that people will love, and it's taking a time for them to really catch on to it, and you feel like, okay, I need to put out something else. That is where that comes from. That is why that is happening, because it's taking the attention span is like getting shorter, and it's taking, you understand. So people feel the urge to just, okay, that is not working, let me get to the next thing. So they're trying to keep up with the attention span of the people. I don't know if I'm even making sense, but I know what I want.
Definitely. But, you are making you're making a lot of sense, because it now becomes a thing where they are trying to catch up with the attention span, which it not going to really work, because that in itself is not sustainable.
Yeah. So I think it's just, I don't know, I don't want to call it luck. I rather say blessing. I think it's a blessing when you something really grabs the people and they take it and run with it, and it's just for you to get behind it now. Once that ignites, it's just for you to run behind, put in the work to promote it and push it.
Yeah. What was your biggest lesson navigating the music industry after Cheerleader success?
Say that again. My biggest?
Your biggest lesson navigating the music industry after the Cheerleader success.
All right. Shut out the noise. Sometimes you have to shut out the noise. Also, you remember old people say, the higher monkey climber, the more them exposed. Just know that the bigger you get is the more scrutiny you will come under, the more criticism. You have to develop a thick skin. Not a lot of people are going to be happy for your success. Not a lot of people are going to think that you are deserving of it. Because again, Kirk Franklin delivered a really powerful speech during the, the BET Awards. Where he's saying sometimes some things happen that doesn't even make sense. Like he was making a point to say he's not even a great artist because he can't even sing. It doesn't make sense, him getting this award. But when God decides to bless you, it's not even supposed to make sense. And I just think that is a very powerful speech, because the internet is a place that breeds hate and envy, because everybody is so locked in and concerned about what everybody else is doing. And again, it might feel like to some people like you're not deserving. So you have to develop a thick skin and just persevere.
Yeah. And interestingly, like, that is your view on it, because it leads me to my next question, where, even though you created other songs after Cheerleader, lots of songs, including Hula Hoop, you still had some critics who believe that, OMI, he's a one-hit wonder, in that regard. How do you react or respond when you hear talks like that, knowing what you know?
Because they are genuinely not a fan of my music, and I know the difference. There's a difference between people who are a fan of your music, and then people who are just listening to what the majority, or what you'd say, they're just moving with the crowd. So if the crowd is saying, oh, this is the hot song now, then them jump on it and be like, yeah, man, this is the hot song now, instead of researching the artist and be like, okay, let me see what else he has. Okay, you know what? I actually like this one. It's not as popular as the one before, but actually it's a pretty good one. And then they, genuinely becoming a fan. A lot of people are just not a fan. So they are not going to do their research to know anything else about the artist. Like I would be on the road and people come up to me like, yo, drop nothing yet, but me just dropped something last week. Well, you're genuinely not a fan, bro. You're genuinely not a fan, bro. So you're not gonna know. So me drop something last week because you're not interested to know, and that's fine. Everything is not for everybody, and this is something I've learned to live with and just cope with being in this public space.
No, absolutely. And, even for you, though, like, creating something so grand, so great, with such a world impact, what is that process like for you when you know you're creating another song? Do you think that will this be another cheerleader? What's your thought process in those crucial moments?
And that is a trap that I don't want to ever fall in, to feel like I'm competing with myself. At the end of the day, I will always be the guy who created that banger. You get me? There's no competing with, and until the test of time, until the end of time, I will always be that guy, the guy who created that particular banger. And it's not about competing with myself. And you still have people where do it for years and still not achieve out of the 10 million of them put out, it not make one cheerleader. You understand what I'm saying? And it's not even me being a hype, it's just a fact. You know, it's not being cocky or hype, it's just a fact. There's a lot of people who genuinely I put out work and I put in the work and I put in the dedication, but they have just not hit that. They have not found that chink in the armor. They have not found that breakthrough.
No,
So
absolutely.
it is still something to be. If it was true that I'm a one-hit wonder, it is still something to be proud of, and it is still something to celebrate. You get me? Because it made an impact, undeniably.
And I'm sure it has opened multiple doors. I mean, because of Cheerleader, you performed with a Taylor Swift. Give us an idea as it relates to some of the opportunities that Cheerleader, this mega hit, created for you.
Now, if you can remember early on in the interview, I'm saying, it gets you in the room and it gets you in the conversation. Your voice is heard because you've done it. And now I can get a collaboration if I want to. You know what I mean? I can get a collaboration if I genuinely want a collaboration, and people reach out to me for collaborations. I've been on projects where I don't talk about it much, but with big names that I've written for, but because of, how I am, I don't know. I'm just not that guy who,
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if like
but
that.
at least, but it's not even enough to because, and I totally get it as well, because I'm also an introverted extrovert, so I kind of get
Yeah.
that, and based on the fields that we're in. But I think we're
Yeah.
living in a different time where
Of
seeing
course.
is believing and knowing it, and sometimes you have
Absolutely.
to
You're absolutely
write your
right.
history. So who
Yeah.
are some of the international stars that you have written for without giving away too much?
Well, Stephen Marley. I did Old Soul, and Stephen
Oh,
actually named
amazing.
his tour, and I think the album Old Soul, from that one song.
I love that
You know.
song. I love the album. That's amazing. See, you're giving us
Thank you.
things that we didn't know. There was a copyright infringement lawsuit in France over the Felix Yen remix of Cheerleader. I know you won the case in 2023, but reports still suggest that millions in royalties are still frozen. What's the update with that situation?
Well, it is something that I've been advised not to speak on. Yeah, so it's we did in fact come out victorious on that, but it is something I've never spoken in an interview, because I feel like sometimes these things become messy and it lengthens the process. It draws out the process a little bit more. So um, I've been advised not to speak on it.
Okay,
Respectfully.
understood. Looking back, is there anything you would have done, differently in how you handle contracts and management, especially in the early stages of your international success?
Well, it is good because I've had the privilege of working with an experienced manager who knows these contracts, who is very knowledgeable about these things. So even contractual agreements with us and major labels, it will work out differently for us, than a person who is not that experienced and who does not study the business as well, or have even that good of an attorney, because it's not just any attorney that represents you. It has to be an attorney who is savvy in music business. So this is something I would also advise, everybody who's doing artist management or even, musicians themselves, the artists themselves, just have somebody represent you that understand that aspect of the business, because it's different from a real estate attorney, from a one that does with criminal law and all of that. There's specific areas of focus, and just understand that.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting that you said that too, because ever so often during these types of conversations and just in general, you will hear entertainers, kind of paint labels as demons, based on they're not getting what they went into the contractual agreement with. And what I'm getting from you is based on your experience, the fact that you have people who understand and know and can look out for your best
protected.
interest.
Yeah,
man.
So you're a little bit more protected, and you are gonna have mishaps. You're gonna have bad experiences there, and most of the times, rumors are true. You have artists that has gotten blocked. We can't say the full term on radio, but you know what I talk about. And deliberate attempts are made to do so, and you just have to remain resilient and strong. And so, and again, silence is a virtue. Sometimes just remain silent, just work in silence. Sometimes you become too loud or too talkative, and you say too much. You kill your hand, as the Jamaicans would say. You understand? Just remain silent. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I can definitely see that you trust your team, and ever so often, you will hear about like partnerships and, when people sever ties, them say, boy, their creative differences or whatever the case is. What's your reality like as a creative? Do you have, ultimate opportunity and leg room to be your creative self, or you have restrictions?
No, most definitely, especially now, being off the major label, like there's a lot more creative control on my part of it. And I would like to view Mr. Dylan and my relationship as one that, what I call it, we have the best of both worlds, digital and analog, because both are important. You understand? And there are some ideologies that he possessed that is necessary to this day, and there are new introductions that I can suggest that will also push the brand further. And I think we have that mutual respect for each other, where everybody, opinion counts. Everybody has a voice. So I'm not ever going to disrespect him as my manager. I'm always going to trust his judgment, even if I have an objection.
No, I totally love the analogy that you use to basically explain that. Are you open to being signed by another label, or what's your mission now?
Yeah, but I'm always open, but the conversation, it has to make sense. I'm always open to signing with another major label, and the terms and conditions has to make sense now. And I guess the more established you become, is the more leg room you have to really negotiate these things, these contractual agreements. So, yeah, man.
No, the original version of Cheerleader is known for its reggae pop vibe, while the remix, that gained global recognition is considered deep house. Now, as someone who blends genres effortlessly, how do you describe, or label your sound?
Man, I don't want to put a label on it, because, I don't like to be in a box, which was one of the things that I struggled with a bit, even, being under the major label, where we would have all these producers and writers who are coming on board, and everybody is trying to write another Cheerleader. But as a creative, I'm saying, but I'm not all just Cheerleader. I have other ideas that I want to get out there. There are other facets of my range that I want people to be, to be exposed to. And, that was always it for me. So I don't think I like to put a label on my song, because trust me, if me feel like someone chat a dance out tune tomorrow, I don't want you hold it against me. I said, boy, where I try? You know?
Yeah, I know. I definitely get it because I know at one point,
Yeah,
people are trying to place your sound, like place a
yeah.
song. I mean, is it reggae pop? Is it pop? Is it tropical house? Like I
You know what?
remember that
Let's put it.
conversation.
Let's put it this way. It's OMI. That's the genre. That's a genre in itself.
Yeah, I definitely love that. You also mentioned songwriters in giving us that explanation now, but then even in our culture, songwriters, that's not like a big profession per se because you have
Yeah,
enough people. Songwriters don't get credits. How
yeah.
important is it, especially speaking to the genre, that you give songwriters their credits and the importance of a songwriter? If you can just
It
expound on
is.
that a bit.
It is very important because, all right, this is my view on the business, right? 100% of nothing is nothing, but 1% of something, it is something. And I think that that is what a lot of people want to, own 100% of their music. And yeah, but it not pass out to half of you. How about you collaborate with the top producer, the top writer, and the top person who can distribute your music, and everybody eats a food off of the thing? How about that? You get what I'm saying? So it's not about, owning 100%, because what 100% of what? If it's not crossing borders and breaking down barriers. I mean, so I think when it comes down to the paperwork aspect of it, everybody should get their due credit. I'm 100% for that.
Do you think sometimes the hustle mentality that is, a part of our business sometimes cast a dark cloud over, individuals per se making like sensible business decisions and move, or just even you saying that 1% is still something versus zero out of 100?
Yeah, of course. Definitely. And it's not me say it, it's just a fact. Definitely the hustle mentality mash up a lot of people. You can't necessarily have that coming into this business because, you're not protected when you have that hustle mentality. You have to do your research and you have to make sure that you are in good stead to receive. Once the thing take off big, you had all your ducks in a row and you're ready to receive, what is due unto you. So if you don't set the thing properly, the foundation of it, then you're going to be in big trouble.
Now, you have worked with a variety of artists, from Felix, Shaggy, and even the Vamps. Which collaboration would you say actually pushed you the most creatively, and why?
um I would say, it's a tricky one, because I know a lot of people is expecting me to say Felix because Cheerleader is the, and then I have a huge respect for Shaggy because, a caliber artist like that, wanting, me on a feature, that was also a privilege. But I think the Vamps kind of brought a different side. Like the Vamps took it, like a Shaggy and a Omi, a lot of people could see it. If you get what I mean, they could see it happening. But I think a collaboration with the Vamps, who's predominant, like it's a white group doing that kind of sound. It's like of a, what do you call that, punk rocker or something like that. And then me being a part of that as a collaboration, that's definitely a cultural exchange right there. You get me? It's not something you could readily see happen.
No, absolutely. I totally understand and get that. Recently, we have seen where the likes of Buju Banton, sold out the Barclays Center back to back. Vibes Cartel has done a similar thing. We see where Bounty Killer is getting ready for the Barclays Center as well next month. What, as someone from the industry, what do you make of this that's happening on the international scene, and is this something that has gotten you personally excited to say do arena shows as well?
Of course, this is amazing for the genre. This is amazing for the culture, and I love the unity between, all the giants. Vibes Cartel doing his thing. Bounty Killer actually sent me big ups the other day on my performance because I went, I did a festival. When was it, last month? Yeah, it was last month. yeah, it was last month in London, and we had highlights up on my social media page, and Bounty Killer was over there, giving me big ups and letting me know he's proud of what I'm doing, and that in itself just even though I'm not in the dancehall space, but it is still that unity because we all represent a piece of out of many one people. We're all representing a piece of the culture, and I think it's just an amazing feeling.
How do you personally, Omi, represent the brand Jamaica and the culture? Because like I mentioned before, and you said like the genre is just Omi, so it's not like what you do is easily identifiable, especially if a person's in the world at large. But how do you personally represent brand Jamaica with what you do?
All right. Well, first of all, I've never denied, being my nationality. I've never denied my nationality, even though people would have expressed that, oh, I thought you were from here or I thought you were from there. Well, I'm not. I'm from Jamaica. You know what I mean? And I every opportunity at every turn that I get to mention that, I always try to. You understand? And you can also hear it in my music. You can hear it in my accent, especially my latest releases. You hear I'm embracing my culture a little bit more in terms of my accent or the conversation, my delivery. It's me tapping back into. You remember all three. If you're a fan of my music, you would remember all threes. You would remember Fireworks and songs like those. It's me tapping back into that early start for OMI. As a lot of people, because how big Cheerleader I got, they don't remember those songs, that I started out with,
Yeah. No, Me For You, this was your album. You dropped it in 2025. What did this album represent for you at the time, both personally and professionally?
Well, I was just excited about doing an album, about having a body of work that people could just sit and listen through. I don't know. It was a good album. It went gold, I think, in the US. But there are a lot of things that I would have done differently still, and these are things that I'm gonna change or I'm gonna do now, being independent. So,
Give
but
us an idea of some of the things that, like you said, you would change, like you would have changed.
all right. For example, doing an album, I want my second album to sound like a body of work that it's not just a color, like a collage of songs just put together. You get me? Just I don't want it to sound like just a bunch of songs just put together.
More
I want there to
cohesive.
be cohesive. I need, yeah, yeah. There you go. You came on big word a while ago. Cohesive. I want it.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
you know,
that's what, because it's a project, so I totally get it instead of
yeah.
just having, yeah.
Yeah, man. I
Okay.
want it to have a mood. I want it to have a mood. I want it to take you from place to place with smoother transitions and all of that. Just take you on a journey. If you put that album on and you start from Kingston and you go Ochi, it's just a mood right throughout. Yeah, man.
Performing with Taylor Swift during her 1989 world tour, what would
Mhm.
you say was your takeaway from that experience?
My takeaway from that experience is just the power of music, and again, finding that crack, finding, having that blessing where you get to share stage with people who you never ever imagine it would be possible. Um, just the power of music. That was my takeaway from it. To see the whole stadium just erupted once I came out on stage and started performing the song. To see Taylor Swift singing along to the song and actually being a fan of, you know, the music. It was just an amazing experience.
No, yeah, I mean, she is like a global superstar as well, you know?
Of
So,
course.
how do you, I mean, being an introvert, do you ever, is it nerve wracking before like your performances and stuff? Because you know how it is for introverts.
Every performance, every performance, you feel like you need to go to the bathroom. For everyone. It's just, I don't know. And most artists will tell you the same thing too. Like every performance, you feel that nerve just before though, because I think once you get out on stage, and especially if it's an audience who is welcoming and an audience who really loves you, it gives you that energy. Which is why I always encourage artists to go where you are loved. Don't try to be in every space. Go where you have your fan base. Because what will happen is if you walk out there and you don't get that response, or you feel like you feel like you're on a talent show. You know, like
So,
people are there to criticize more than to enjoy themselves.
but
So,
but how
you
about
know,
how do you try to tap into a new fan base, like to get new fans, if that's also your approach to say, go where
because the
you are
algorithm because the
appreciated.
algo because the algorithm will show. Remember, we are in a social media based age. The algorithm will show where you're getting, where you're higher favored. So um I think you should follow that data and really choose where you go, choose where you perform. And maybe this is, I don't know if this is a secret or something I shouldn't be saying, but it is what it is. Yep.
All right. In 2022, the Jamaica Constabulary Force gave you, a special award for your contribution to the organization. What did this recognition mean to you?
Oh, it meant a lot. Like everybody know me, love me, the JCF family. So to have this um, recognition handed to me, after leaving for so many years, it really means a lot, because it means that I've been, holding the standard high and holding my head up and making them proud still. Even though I'm no longer a part of the organization. So it meant a lot to have that appreciation.
No, let's talk about Poker Face. I played it earlier for our listeners. This is a brand new song. Talk to us about it. And is it a part of your 2025 album that you're working on?
Oh, you mean? Yeah. I think yeah, it speaks for itself. And I think you can hear a lot of me in the record, you know, and in terms of the direction that I want to go, in terms of me wanting to tap a little bit more back into the culture, because this is how we started out. It's just Cheerleader being such a global hit, well, the remixed version at least, while a lot of people would kind of not remember that this is how Omi started out. Omi, earlier years, Omi was doing this kind of music. So I think Poker Face is just that vibe that I think it kind of connects the dots.
Yeah, I did get like different flares from it, different deliveries, so you get like, you hear just, different sounds. Like it's almost like you're being playful with your voice and
Yeah.
how you're delivering it, so
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. Now, give us some insights on the album, Naomi. Like, you have a title for it. Are there any collaborations? How many tracks? Do you have a release date? What you
All
can
right.
tell us?
All right. So we don't have an official release date. Collaborations, we're keeping it a secret until we iron out everything. And the title is yet to be decided.
Okay,
Is yet to be
okay.
decided. But yes, there is an album in the making. We will have at least 12 to 15 songs on it. Um, you know, I want it to, as I said before, I want it to be cohesive. I want it to be a body of work that, you listen from start to finish and not be skipping songs. I just want there to be a lot of thought that goes into it, which is why I'm not rushing it, which is why I'm not rushing to okay, I need to have a release date. No, because I want it to be perfect.
Okay. Are you hoping to release it within the Grammy eligibility period, or you're not even thinking about that?
You know what? I think that would actually be a good strategy because I think that was one of the reasons why I was never nominated for a Grammy, despite how huge Cheerleader went because of the time of its release. And I think, that being a factor, I kind of want to be more strategic, with how we go about this for
How you
real.
put out stuff. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense too. Now, earlier you gave us kind of like an insight as it relates to Omi the daddy. So let's talk about Omi the family man. What do you
Yeah,
enjoy most about being a parent, and are you married with children?
yeah, man, fully committed. And, being a parent is one of the greatest joys anyone can ever experience. I think, I was sharing that little bit with my son. It is moments like these that connects me with my parents, having both of them pass now. My mom passed back in 2023. So
Our
I'm
condolences.
not a half run. I'm a full hand now. I'm not a half run anymore. I'm a full hand. No mother, no father.
Wow.
And I think my children kind of bring me closer to them because I see, especially my son, I see so much of my mom in him, like his attitude and everything, so it kind of reconnects me with them in a sense, and I think at the end of the day, Kshema, this is all we have, moments and memories, because we're not here forever, you know?
No, absolutely.
Fathers around the world just continue to be the best version of a father that you can be. You know, at the end of the day, that is your legacy. As I mentioned before, our children, our offspring is what connects us to our ancestors. It's what carry on your last name. So, I know it's hard sometimes, but you still have to give it your all, King, and raise future kings and queens. All right? And that is
All
my
right.
bit.
And finally, Omi, any advice for young Jamaicans dreaming of breaking into the international scene?
Yeah, man. I think keep your ears to the ground, but also don't pay too much attention to the noise. Because as what Chronic said in one interview, sometimes you have to give the people what they never know so them want. You know. So you need to tap into that energy. You need to tap into that thing that, and create the best product where you can create. Just pay attention to your craft. Don't just put together something and show it out there and hope say it catch. Really put some thought into it, do your research, put some effort into it, man. You know? And dare to be different. Why not? Within the
Yes.
moral
You're
you understand,
standing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That is
yeah, moral
important.
standing. But still, yeah, that is important. But still, dare to be different. Yeah, man.
All right. Omi, thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. We wish you all the best. Keep doing you. And once your information regarding the album and the songs are ready, be sure to hit me up so we can add it to our playlist.
Of course.
And big
Of
up to
course, Kshema. Thank you
Specialist.
so much for having me on your program, man. Really appreciate it. Big up,
Yes.
specialist.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And big up to your team. They're absolutely professional. Big up to Nadine.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Big up to
Nadine.
your team.
Yeah,
Nadine,
man.
yeah. So thank you so much,
Yeah,
Omi. The
man.
messages
Yeah,
are
man.
coming through. Them say, look here, Clarendon proud, proud buck.
Oh, your mate.
All
See
right,
you,
that
son.
was Omi.